Xindao, or whatever else your greeting of choice may be, from a stiflingly humid and also rather hot day here in Haiphong, Vietnam. I'm currently out here at what appears to be called Vinhomes Royal Island, which is, I guess you could technically argue, an island sort of stuck between two of Haiphong's rivers, and somewhere that's not all that far as the crow flies from where we live. In fact, if that bridge you can see behind me had been finished by now, it would probably only be about a 6 or 7 kilometer motorbike ride to get here. As it is, it hasn't been finished just yet, and so I had to go on an 18-kilometer loop to get here. But it is at least nice to see that it should be a little bit more accessible in future. Anyway, the reason I'm out here is that despite having at least 3 rivers, I think, that runs through it, Haiphong has very little riverside real estate that is actually accessible to pedestrians. The city is a bit of a building site slash industrial hub. However, I did see this place on a map, and as it's not too far from where we live, I thought I'd come and check it out and see if it's a good place to go running or walking with the family. There seem to be a lot of coffee shops and restaurants that, now that I'm here, may not actually be open yet, but yeah, this place is still under construction, though it looks like when it's done it might be quite a nice place to come and chill out. So that's kind of the first basic conceit of this video, is that I wanted to come out and check this place out, explore the city a little bit more, and try and find some places where it would actually be nice to run. Heavens knows I haven't found too many of those just yet. The other basic conceit of this video is that I recently picked up a new pair of shoes. I thought it might be nice to come outside, do a video, and just talk about not necessarily these shoes so much, but more what I look for in just a general daily trainer, which is hopefully what these shoes are going to turn out to be. Okay, so about these shoes I recently picked up. They are the Mizuno Wave Rider 27, which are very much not the latest iteration of Mizuno's long-running flagship daily trainer, as I think they're currently onto the 28. Whereas the 28 is still kind of expensive. The 27 was available for 359 RMB, and that seemed like the sort of price that I couldn't really turn down. So I got these shoes partly because I've never run in Mizuno before and they were too cheap to turn down, but mainly to fill a gap in my running shoe rotation that I haven't really been able to plug for quite a while now, which is that of the cushion-focused daily trainer, or the all-around workhorse in any good running shoe rotation. The last couple of shoes that I've purchased hoping to fill this slot in my rotation, while good in their own way, haven't really been quite what I was looking for. Both the beam I saw and the Skechers Go Run Ride 11, I think, have ended up feeling far closer to what I would call a recovery shoe than a true all-purpose daily trainer, as they've both been pretty heavy and pretty soft and not all that versatile. Now that said, a lot of people would consider them to be good daily trainers. So that's why I thought it'd be nice in this video just to go over what I consider to be a daily trainer and a few of the attributes and features that I look for when I'm trying to find something that suits my needs. Bugger this wind. So as to what a daily trainer is, in general, it should really be a shoe that can do pretty much everything you need it to. It should be that one shoe where if you didn't plan on building a whole rotation and you're just going to do an entire training block in one pair of shoes, that would be the shoe you would go for. Kind of the jack of all trades shoe. It doesn't necessarily need to excel at going fast or babying your legs on easy days, but it should be pretty good at all of those things and versatile enough that you can run long in it, you can run slow in it, and if you really need to, you can run pretty fast in it too. First pair of proper premium running shoes I ever owned was very much in that category. It was the Asics Cumulus 21, and it was something with just enough cushioning that when I was doing my slow miles it felt good, but if I wanted to run fast and do some threshold or tempo efforts, it felt pretty good doing that as well. And until I expanded out my rotation and got the Nova Blast 1, the Cumulus 21 was also my go-to long run shoe as well. It was very much a shoe that I felt like I could do everything in. Now at the moment I tend to run a pretty big rotation because I have a slight obsession with running shoes and something I guess you could call a mild addiction to online shopping. So I don't necessarily need my daily trainers to actually do everything, and instead I rely on them to do the sort of 70 to 80% of my weekly mileage that falls into that zone 1, zone 2, steady, easy, daily miles sort of category. So I want something that can go slowly and be comfortable, and I want something that can go steady without feeling heavy or blocky or clumsy or unnatural. maybe pick up the pace for a few strides or the odd sort of marathon tempo rep or block in a run if I'm feeling good, but I'm not necessarily going to be using it for workouts. It's got to be something that's consistent and reliable without necessarily feeling too exciting. In order to get a shoe that has the right feeling and does everything I want it to, I've generally found there are a few sort of parameters or variables that I'm looking for that tend to be shared between all of the shoes I've had that I guess have conformed more closely to that niche in the past. The first one I'm going to mention is weight, because while some people don't necessarily think it's the most important attribute of a shoe, I've personally found it to be pretty key when it comes to whether or not I can or want to go long in a shoe and how I feel churning out those steady daily miles. So for me, I'm an EU size 46 or 45 depending on the shoes, because the length varies and whatever. But yeah, in some brands I'll go with a 46, and some brands I'll go with a 45. And obviously how big your shoe size is has an effect on the weight, so it's kind of relative when you're looking at how heavy a shoe is. But for me, in my size, I don't really want a daily trainer to go over 320 grams. Ideally, it would be around about the 300 mark. Obviously, I'm not going to complain about a shoe being lighter than that, but generally with the cushioning and the comfort, the padding that you get in a shoe that you're consistently going to want to put on day after day, no matter what the weather is and no matter how you're feeling, I find that 300 grams is round about where most of the really good daily trainers tend to fall. Okay, apparently my camera's overheating, so I'm going to stop and have a little cold drink. Pro tip, GoPros do not do well in summer. I mean, for some context on the heat, I just checked my weather app. It says it's 31 degrees but feels like it's 38, which I would not disagree with. Anyway, back to the shoes. Like I was saying, 300 grams seems to be about the sort of the sweet spot for a cushioned daily trainer for me. And that's one of the areas where the Skechers Ride 11 and the Be My Soar have maybe fallen down for me. The Be My weighs 340 grams in a 46, and the Skechers I think was 320 in a 45. So not crazy heavy, but it does feel a little bit blockier than the scales would say, and it is right at the top end of what I'm looking for. But I think the Skechers probably suffers from another problem, which might explain why I honestly prefer the Be My as a daily trainer despite it being heavier, which is that the midsole is a little bit too soft. Now don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy a soft midsole, but it's something that I think feels good on shorter, easier runs. And once I start going to like 14, 16K or above, my personal experiences with sort of softer foams like that is that my legs start to feel drained. I don't feel like they're very good for going long. I mean, some people love them. One example might be the Nike Invincibles. So I had the Invincible 2s and I absolutely loved those shoes for my easy runs. But if I tried to go like anywhere near sort of 20 kilometers in them, they just started to feel a bit mushy to me, and I started to feel very drained, like I had no energy left. They just didn't really feel like shoes that I could take long. Now the Skechers aren't quite that soft, but they do have a little bit of that feeling, which when combined with the fact that they are slightly heavier than I would like, just sort of leaves them in that medium, shorter length, easier pace sort of running range for me, which is fine, but it's not really what I'm looking for in my versatile daily trainer. Likewise, I wouldn't really want something that's too firm, because firm shoes can feel kind of harsh. They can be great when you're trying to go fast over shorter distances, but feel a little bit more jarring when you're going over longer distances. Now, I don't really have a tool for measuring Durometre or anything, so all I can really go off is the Durometre that brands advertise. But what I've seen from information posted about shoes that I've had, I would generally say probably somewhere in the mid-40s on the Durometre scale is about the sweet spot for me when it comes to a versatile trainer. Okay, so that's weight and it's midsole firmness, I guess. The next thing I wanted to mention was stack height. Now, well, there's a bunch of different foam compounds and the softnesses, firmnesses, and so stack height isn't necessarily the best indicator of anything really. It does generally correlate pretty well with level of cushioning and with weight. And as it tends to be one of the more readily available stats, I find it can be a pretty good indicator of whether or not this shoe is going to be what I'm looking for. And so for a daily trainer in general, I'm looking for something in the low to mid 30s, 30 to 35 millimeters, that sort of area. Shoes with larger stack heights than that can either tend to be a bit soft or a bit heavy, or both. And while a lot of shoes, including some pretty good daily trainers with lower stack height, can have that added versatility and maybe be a little bit better at the speed sort of stuff, I find once you start getting into sort of the mid-20s, you're already running the risk that there's maybe not as much cushioning there as you'd want if you're going to be going 20, 25, 30 kilometers on a weekend long run. All right, it's too hot for this, and I'm pretty much back to where my bike is anyway. So those are the main things that I would look for in a shoe, because those are the main things that affect the ride. Some people might care a bit more about the drop. Honestly, I can very rarely tell the difference, and I don't feel like I care. I don't have any serious sort of injury concerns that I've discovered as of yet, and I haven't really found any obvious sort of differences in sort of performance or use case depending on the drop of the shoe. I just go with the theory that if it does make a difference, then having a variety of different drops is probably healthy, and that quite often stems from just not paying any attention to what drop the shoe is when you buy it. If, like me, you end up with way too many shoes, you probably have a variety of different drops. But the other things, I guess, are the outsole, which does make a difference to daily trainer because you want it to have a decent amount of grip. Again, that was a serious issue with the Nova Blast 3. If it's a daily trainer and I'm doing 70–80% of my mileage in it, I want to be able to take it out every day, come rain or shine. And so a decent, grippy, durable outsole is pretty important. And then there's the upper, which I'm not a fan of hugely padded uppers. I find beyond a certain point, all they're doing is adding weight and puffing up the shoe without necessarily adding any comfort, and in many cases sort of being detrimental to comfort. That was my one issue, I think, with the Cumulus 21. Like, it wasn't a crazy exciting shoe, but as my first premium running shoe, it was pretty good, but the upper was way too puffy, the tongue was way too thick. It just didn't really add any benefit, and if anything, sometimes I felt it was just too stuffy. I don't know. On the flip side, I don't want something that's too flimsy, too light, too breathable, something that you want in a performance training shoe or a race shoe, because I am going to be going long. I am going to be doing like 10, 12, 14, 16 kilometers on a fairly regular basis, and some of the times I'm going to be going very slow and feeling pretty terrible. Some of the times my legs and my feet are going to be beaten up, and so I want something with a little bit of padding, a little bit of structure to hold everything in place when I'm going slowly and feel like crud. So for me, something like the upper on the Triumph 20 actually, which wasn't crazy padded but was very comfortable, pretty much exactly what I want. And so that's pretty much what I look for when I'm going for a cushioned daily trainer. The Cumulus 21 was a fairly good example. The Puma Velocity Nitro 1, another really good offering. The Nova Blast 1, also from Asics. The Be My March 4 Plus, maybe a less well-known shoe, but I think that pretty much summed up everything I want in a cushioned daily trainer. So that really just leaves us with summing up where I think the Mizuno is going to land sort of the suitability scale for a daily trainer. First things first, the weight. I think it's 320 grams in a 45, so it is a little bit heavier than I would like. However, the foam is slightly firmer while still being perfectly well cushioned, and I think that contributes to it not feeling as heavy underfoot and on the run as the scales would say it is. So it is heavy, but whereas I think the Skechers Go Run Ride 11 feels heavier than it is, this feels lighter than it is. Despite being about the same weight, it gives more of an impression that I could go long and I could go steady. In terms of the stack height, I think this is slightly higher than I would usually go for, but it doesn't feel sort of high or unstable. Again, maybe because of the firmness and because of the sort of wave plate that comes in the foam, it feels pretty stable. And so even when I'm sort of tired and not really paying much attention to what my feet are doing and in bad form, it doesn't feel like it's fatiguing the stabilizer muscles in the same way that certain softer shoes might do. In terms of the outsole, I have taken this out in the wet and it's been very grippy, very reliable. I don't think there's going to be any issues there. In terms of the upper, it's pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. Again, nothing is too thick. The tongue is quite nice and thin, but it also feels very comfortable. And the shoe as a whole does feel very comfortable to be in without feeling overly plush or puffy. And so while this is still maybe not the perfect example of what I'm looking for, I think the Mizuno Wave Rider 27 is still going to be a pretty good example of what I'm looking for in a daily trainer. I'll have to see what happens if I try and take it up to about 20 kilometers, do sort of a longish run or a shortish long run, I would say. Although that's going to have to wait until a day where it's not so blisteringly hot and swampishly humid. Alright, I hope that video was at least moderately interesting, and if anybody did watch it this far, please leave me a comment below saying what it is you look for in a daily trainer, and maybe giving some examples of your favourite shoes from the past that have filled that role for you. And for me, it's basically, if you want to know what my perfect daily trainer looks like, it's the Asics Gel Nimbus 24.